Dorian Hayes wasn't nervous. Not really. He stood there in courtroom 2D of the Monroe County Courthouse, wearing the same faded denim shirt he had worn to Sunday service 2 days earlier. His palms were dry, rough from decades of coaxing stubborn land into feeding his family. His boots, worn at the heels, scuffed the tiled floor as he shifted his weight slightly. The room was silent except for the hum of an overhead fan. He cleared his throat, steady, and spoke directly to Judge Mary Ann Keller. "Your Honor," he began, voice low but firm. "I'm here 'cause that new pipelines drained the water off my south field. That's what happened." A chuckle. Low, breathless, but sharp enough to cut. Judge Keller didn't laugh outright, but her lips twitched in amusement, and her eyes flicked toward the court reporter as if to say, "Did you hear how he said that?" The word irrigation had rolled thick and slow off Dorian's tongue, wrapped in a deep Alabama drawl. Keller tilted her head, her smile edging on condescension. "You mean irrigation, Mr. Hayes?" she corrected, the way a kindergarten teacher might correct a 5-year-old. There was a pause, long enough for the discomfort to settle over the courtroom. Dorian didn't flinch. "Yes, ma'am," he said evenly. "That's what I said." A soft murmur stirred among the few people in the gallery. A woman shifted in her seat. Someone cleared his throat. Even the bailiff straightened. Judge Keller had presided over murder trials, corporate fraud, custody battles. To her, a small-time farmer complaining about water rights wasn't headline material. She leaned forward, still smiling. "Well, Mr. Hayes, perhaps you could restate your complaint." Clearly this time, Dorian inhaled slowly, not out of anger, but out of something else, something older. He had seen this smile before at banks, zoning offices, farm supply counters. It wasn't new. "I've been working the same land my granddaddy cleared with his own hands," he said. "Ain't asking for favors. Just water. Enough to keep the crops alive. Same as we've been doing for 60 years. Blake Ramsey, the attorney for Monroe Development Company, a man whose tailored suit cost more than Dorian's pickup, stood to object. "Your Honor, we prefer to stick to the legal aspects." "I'm sticking to specifics," Dorian replied, not even glancing at him. "That pipe crossed the county line without notice. They rerouted a stream fed into our irrigation system. Now, we're paying to truck water in. Water that was ours." Keller blinked. She hadn't expected him to come prepared. Dorian reached into his coat and produced a folded document. "This here's a copy of the letter I sent to County Utilities back in March. Never heard back, but I got a receipt." He handed it to the bailiff, who brought it up to the bench. Keller skimmed it, then looked back at Dorian. The smile was gone now, but Dorian wasn't done. "Your Honor," he said, steady, "I know how I sound, and I know how folks hear it. But I ain't here for nobody's entertainment. I'm here for the land I was born on, worked on, and buried my daddy on." A hush fell. The judge shifted. People leaned forward. Even Blake Ramsey's smirk faltered. Dorian scanned the courtroom briefly, then locked eyes with Keller. "May I finish?" he asked, voice low but unshaken. She nodded. A real nod this time, no smirk. Most in the room saw just a weathered black man in muddy boots and jeans, a man with a thick accent and slow words. They didn't know what it took to survive 3 generations on Alabama farmland. They didn't know about Hayes Farm, 80 acres of stubborn red dirt and clay in Lowndes County, patched with soybeans, rotating fields of okra, and the same 24 pecan trees Dorian's grandfather planted in 1937. They didn't know about Dorian's father, fixing engines with a wrench in one hand and a Bible in the other. About his mother, running a produce stand by the roadside, refusing to let any hungry neighbor leave empty-handed. They didn't know about summers hauling barrels of water when the creeks ran dry and no one offered help. Water had always been a fight, and now a faceless contractor had diverted the stream without warning, strangling the farm without so much as a knock on Dorian's door. He had measured every gallon lost, documented every dry day, sent letters, got nothing. No lawyer wanted his case not winnable, they said. So he stood here alone, because sometimes you speak for yourself, even if your voice trembles, even if they laugh. I ain't asking for no charity, Dorian said. Just what's owed. He unfolded a yellowed letter. My daddy wrote this to my granddaddy, 1962. Said he saw a developer down in Clark County take a creek from farmers like it was nothing. He wrote, "Don't ever stop speaking up, even when your voice don't sound right to them." He folded the letter again with careful hands. That's why I'm here. No one interrupted. Not now. Not even Blake. Dorian pointed toward the pile of documents. I can tell you the day the crops turned yellow. Show you every delivery receipt. Every truckload of water we had to pay for. This ain't emotional, he said, fixing his gaze on Judge Keller. It's survival. The courtroom had shifted. Phones had quietly come out. A teenage girl in the back was recording, not out of disrespect, but because something real was happening. Keller sat back, expression unreadable. Blake fidgeted. May I finish? Dorian asked again. Yes, mister. Hayes, she said softly. Dorian unfolded a worn survey map, pointing to the stream. County map from '78. Streams marked. Been running that way since before any of us were born. The judge compared it against the developer's modern map. A silence stretched long and heavy. Finally, Keller spoke. This court finds Monroe Development failed to properly secure easements or notify affected parties. Mr. Hayes, you are entitled to damages and restoration of water access. Dorian nodded. No, it's might. Just a quiet exhale. Keller's voice lowered. I also want to apologize for my tone yesterday. It was inappropriate. Dorian nodded again. Thank you, Your Honor. As Dorian walked out of courtroom 2D, people watched him not with pity, but with something closer to reverence. He didn't linger, didn't celebrate. He had fields waiting. Later that night, the clip of Dorian standing, calm and unbroken, went viral. It crossed state lines, then national ones. In coffee shops, classrooms, veterans' halls, people replayed it. One line stayed with them. You didn't expect me to know where I was standing. Dorian didn't ask to be a symbol. He didn't ask for applause. He just asked to be heard. And that, somehow, changed everything. A week later, a letter arrived at his farmhouse. It read simply, "Speak like the ground knows your name." You did. Thank you. Dorian tucked it away in the same folder as his father's letter. Then he went back to work. Because crops don't wait. Because real dignity doesn't live online. It lives in the soil. It lives in the silence after the laughter fades. It lives in the simple, unshakable decision to stand and speak even when no one thinks you should.